Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The number of police stations across England and Wales has almost halved, with many of the sites being sold off to offset budget cuts. Nearly 400 front counters have closed in the past 7 years. In 2010, 31 out of the 43 forces in England and Wales had 901 stations with face-to-face access to the public. But this reduced to 510 by March this year, a fall of 43%. Well, one of the worst affected areas is Derbyshire, where the number of stations has reduced from 25 to just 4. Well, from Derby, I'm now joined by Harjot Dinzat, Derbyshire's Police and Crime Commissioner. Very good afternoon to you. If you will, please go into a bit more detail about how your particular area has been affected.
Officers and police and crime commissioners have had to think seriously about where money is spent when funding has been reducing year on year since 2010, and for us, £27 million less funding, which means over 400 less police officers and over 200 less police staff. And when you are faced with that, you're always looking to see how you can offset any police officer cuts by finding other efficiencies and savings. So one of the things was about how well our inquiry officers being used versus the 999 and the 101 calls, and we felt bobbies before buildings was our priority.
So you think getting rid of buildings rather than bobbies on the beat essentially is the best way to go?
It was when you're sort of getting to having to look at more and more efficiencies to balance the budget, because funding is being reduced for policing when demand is going up and crime is changing, you need to look at everything. And inquiry officers were one of those areas where usage of them was reducing, and it was not cost effective to have reception staff waiting there, and the numbers of contacts not being as high according to the cost.
And do you think that too many cuts are being made and lives are being put at risk?
I mean, I think the thing is getting really to a critical point. Budgets are being squeezed, and despite the government and ministers and Home Office spokespeople saying that policing is protected, the reality is over the last 7-8 years in Derbyshire we've had over £27 million of cuts, and looking ahead to the next 3 years, I'm still looking at 1.3% reduction every year, year on year, despite myself putting the council precept up to its maximum level of 2% for the next 2 to 3 years. That cannot be good and helpful for the resilience of police forces who are doing their best against financial constraints.
And is there an argument that people feel a lot safer, a lot more confident if they have a police building nearby?
The public, when I go up and down Derbyshire talking to local communities in my towns and villages, they tell me that they do feel more assured and reassured when there's visible policing. And when numbers go down, that does reduce. And because we have to target where we have to use our resource most effectively. So that is a concern. Buildings can give reassurance, but even if we had 25 buildings now, that would not be covering every corner of Derbyshire. So it is reassuring for people who can go and walk to their nearest police station, but there are many, many populations who are further away and can't do that.
And we have seen these crime figures, which some would say are pretty worrying. Is this the right decision to be cutting back on buildings?
I mean, I think whether it's buildings or anything else, the fact is police funding is not adequate and it's going downwards, not upwards, and the demands on policing are increasing and changing. For example, the terrorist attacks, but also in terms of cybercrime, child sexual exploitation, online fraud, cybercrime. These are new challenges, and funding is going down, so it is more concerning that the resilience of police forces is being affected across the piece, not just in buildings, but it's actually people who are actually the most effective engagers with communities. And if there's not enough police officers, then you can't do that.
OK, well, thanks very much for your time and your thoughts on that. Appreciate it.